Professional wrestling, like any other sport, loves a comeback story, and with Ethan Carter-Free re-emerging in WWE and Bobby Lashley reportedly set to follow, 2018 is already delivering them. Big returns create memorable moments and eardrum-bursting pops, but while WWE have already burned through countless major returns in recent years, there are still plenty left on the table. There are a few restrictions though. WWE can't just pluck a Cody Rhodes from Ring of Honor, the man has a contract and that must be respected. The same goes for former developmental prospect Kenny Omega over in Japan. Still, while many of these returns would be tough to pull off, each would benefit the company and wrestler in a number of different ways. I'm Andy from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 former WWE stars who should return in 2018. Number 10. DAMIEN SANDOW. The intellectual saviour of the masses has done bloody nothing since leaving WWE in 2016, with his career fizzling out after a short, ineffective Impact Wrestling run. The former Sandow hasn't wrestled since January 2017 and is currently occupied by projects away from the squared circle. Still, he never had a fair shake of the stick in WWE, and the mid-card could really do with a few more bold, colourful characters like him. Though never really an in-ring phenom, he was more than good enough to get by, and always incredibly charismatic. The saviour gimmick was awesome. Ms. Dow got over huge too, but WWE clipped his wings before he could ever really take off, burying him with the horrendous Macho Mandow gimmick. Now 35, he'd be a solid SmackDown gatekeeper, putting over younger, hungrier babyfaces on their road to the top. Number 9. Beth Phoenix. A 2017 WWE Hall of Fame inductee, Beth Phoenix recently made her way back to WWE television as a commentator in the Mixed Match Challenge, then by featuring in the Women's Royal Rumble. She was a great women's wrestler at a time when the division was no more than an afterthought. Had she come along 10 years later, she'd likely be a megastar, but instead, her best work took place in a marginalised era. If she can still go between the ropes, then another in-ring run is a no-brainer, but an announcing role could suit her too. At a time when WWE are pushing females stronger than ever before, it makes sense to have a woman's voice in the booth, and she did a quality job on the Mixed Match Challenge. Number 8. The original Sin Cara. This one is unlikely, as OG Sin Cara left WWE with plenty of enemies and a reputation for botching, and aside from that, he's a major star in Mexico. Still, that doesn't mean it would be a bad idea, as he'd likely tear it up on Triple H's Reborn 205 Live. A new gimmick would be required, as the former Hunico has the Sin character on lock now, but this is for the best. A brand new image and identity would help him shed his old image as a botcher and allow him to succeed on merit. Now working as Caristico, he's as great in the ring as he ever was, and while there'd be a lot of bridges to mend before he could return to WWE, he'd be a tremendous cruiserweight. Number 7. Eva Marie. Yes, I know, Eva Marie was bloody awful, but that's kind of the whole point. Her troll heel act was generating huge crowd heat before her departure. With women's wrestlers finally pushed on merit and match quality more important than ever, she was a stark contrast to the likes of Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, and that's why people hated her. Eva's pre-release bait and switches were tremendous, and while we obviously don't want her stealing too much time away from her more talented counterparts, there's great value in an act that draws so much heat so easily. Turn Eva loose on Raw and SmackDown and the heat would be nuclear, but for God's sake, keep her away from the title. Number 6. Rey Mysterio. Granted, the former World Heavyweight Champion has already returned to WWE in the Royal Rumble, but not in a full-time sense. Mysterio will work for New Japan Pro Wrestling in March, and his long-term future is still up in the air. Fortunately, it looks like WWE are looking at bringing him back, with recent reports linking him to a Jericho-esque freelance role, and we could see him again by the year's end. This would be a smart move. Rey's Rumble appearances generated immense buzz. He looked leaner, faster, and just straight up better than he has in years, and the YouTube clip has already drawn over 12 million views. Whether giving 205 Live some much needed star power or working dream matches with AJ Styles on SmackDown, there's plenty WWE could do with the wee man in 2018. Number 5. Michelle McCool. Okay, show of hands. How many of you thought that Michelle McCool would be one of the Women's Royal Rumble's biggest standouts? Nobody? Cool, that's what I thought. That McCool entered with such little fanfare but looked so great even 7 years after her last match came completely out of nowhere. No one was more dominant, not even Nia Jax, and while there was no clamour for her to return before the event, it's now clear she has enough left for one last run. It's hard to tell how Michelle would stack up to the likes of Sasha Banks in one-on-one competition, but she has always been underrated between the ropes. The least WWE could do is bring her in for one final summer program against a young up-and-comer. Number 4. Christian. Though he has made several WWE appearances since retiring from the ring in 2014, Christian was released from his contract in May 2016, weeks after the final episode of The Edge and Christian Show had aired on the network. Now 44, his wrestling days are long behind him, but that doesn't mean WWE can't use his charisma. Christian is still hugely popular, and he'd be great in a managerial role, perhaps for someone like Ty Dillinger who, while talented, still hasn't developed an on-screen personality. Granted, WWE's reluctance to use talented managers is a real barrier here, but we're talking about an elite talker and character. Surely, WWE would have room for him. Number 3. Trish Stratus. Though she hasn't wrestled full-time since 2006 and has long since moved on from the sport, Trish Stratus is comfortably the biggest women's wrestling name WWE could bring back in 2018. Her Royal Rumble appearance was tremendous, and she performed as if she'd never been away. Showdowns with the likes of Sasha Banks raised anticipation for a potential match too, but as things stand, we may never see it. That'd be a shame. As a women's revolution forebearer, it would be great to see Trish mix it up with the stars of today, and she's still hugely popular. Imagine what a match with her could do for a Banks, a Bayley, or anyone else on the roster. Let's hope she gets bored of the yoga life and comes back home. Number 2. Batista. Tipped by many as a potential Royal Rumble surprise, Big Dave didn't show up in Philadelphia, but returning is still a possibility. The Guardians of the Galaxy star revealed in late 2017 that he and Vince McMahon had already talked about it and that he'd love one last big run as a full-timer. Admittedly, his age and Hollywood career make this unlikely, but it's clear Batista wants a comeback. It's just a case of making it happen. His last run wasn't a success, but he's now a bigger star than ever before. WWE would need to be smarter than they were in 2014, but if they book it well, Batista would absolutely play a positive role in 2018. Number 1. CM Punk. It's time for WWE's ultimate outcast to come in from the cold. He'll likely fight for the UFC again, and he's probably happy doing so, but CM Punk's first fight was a mess. There's nothing to suggest he'll fare any better in a second, and many would love to see him return to his original calling. Punk's return would do huge numbers for WWE and the voice of the voiceless. As divisive as he is, he's a massive name, and the circumstances of his first departure add boatloads of intrigue. Now admittedly, a comeback isn't at all likely, as the two sides still loathe each other, and Punk was miserable by the end of his last run. Still, him and WWE will be leaving a lot of money on the table if they don't eventually swallow their pride, so his return will never be completely out of the question.
So that was our video. Thank you for watching. Please do feel free to click on anything happening around my head, or something terrible might happen to this dog. Is that you too sweeting me, bro? Ugh. Disgusting. That's really bad.